Good day, Mzansi, and welcome to another episode of Defense in Focus podcast, your to-go-to podcast about everything inspirational, informative, and inclusive conversations around the Defense Force and its issues. Today is no different. We have an exciting guest that speaks to us about aviation in defense. My name is Kivoni, and I get the privileged honor to interview Brigadier General Donovan Chetty. How are you doing, General?
Good morning, ma'am, and I'm highly favored, blessed, and feeling fantastic. Thank you.
We are so excited to have you here because we know we've got the cream today, and we pride ourselves with people like you within our Defense Force, and we are here to speak about your life, about your career, and your passions within our Defense Force. If we can start, who is Brigadier General Donovan Chetty?
Thank you. I was born in Durban, 1976, so it makes me 49. I have two children, Caleb and Jordan. Caleb, a pilot already, but also studying in the Defense Force as a military pilot, and Jordan in matric. I'm married to Jolene, a medical research scientist and PhD candidate for the Medical Research Council, South Africa. I grew up in Durban. Which meant I obviously did a lot of fishing, but I also grew up next to the Durban International Airport. And hence, when it comes to sporting, as you asked me before, I do have provincial colors in rock and surf angling, defense rock and surf angling, Air Force volleyball, and now that I'm away from the sea, I play a lot of golf. So that's in total. So I fly, I fish, and I cook a lot of food.
So, General, you're basically a very colorful person. But just tell us about your early life. What brought you into the military?
So initially, I started after matric in 1993, civil engineering at the ML Sultan Technikon, and the call to the defense was, came very early because I lived on the final approach path of Durban International Airport, and at those days the Puma and the fighter aircraft would fly over my house when they were doing their training out at sea, and it literally encapsulated me and made me want to do the same thing. So initially I tested in the SA Navy. And I started right at the bottom as an engine room attendant because my studies outside was not really recognized for some odd reason. Later on, I became a mechanical fitter machinery ships on Strikecraft. And then the calling to the Air Force was still very strong. And I was advised that I could do an inter-service transfer.
So, General, now you start in the Navy as the bottom of the bottom. But, in contrast, where you are today, you're actually right there on top. But speak to us about that shift. I would love to imagine it's not just a body shift, but also a mental shift. How did you navigate that transition from the Navy going on into the Air Force?
So I think with both organizations, they're strong in culture. So with both those cultures and the small differences were from sliding your foot into stamping your foot, that happens in the Air Force. But in terms of how the Air Force welcomed me, made my transition very easy. Mm-hmm. And the opportunities and the doors that opened for me in the Air Force was expedited, so to say. I started in the Air Force as an aircraft mechanic. Luckily, I maintained my rank I was an able seaman, so I came in as a lance corporal. So it wasn't right at the bottom. And then I completed my training at School for Logistics Training, which is now 68 Air School. And did a few school blocks at Centurion Technikon, and then went through the process of the aircraft mechanic or aircraft fit apprenticeship, which meant I had to spend some time at one air depot in Tabatswane at the time. And I worked in the propeller shop, the engine shop, the foundry, all as an apprentice, before being sent to Air Force Base Durban to complete my apprenticeship training on Oryx helicopters, which I then completed. And in 2000, I got the opportunity to go on pilot's course.
Sure. But what does that do to your morale? Because counting the years from the time you've joined the Air Force, your passion is flying. You want to see yourself on that aircraft, just flying and speaking to your heart and what you have dreamed of as a child. But then what does it do to your morale that you started in the ships and now you're moving on, you're almost doing the same thing. You're now a mechanic and that dream seems to be fading off. But then what keeps you going through it?
So, because in the Air Force, I could still get into a cockpit by becoming a flight engineer. A flight engineer is basically a technician that flies and assists the pilot. So if I was not given the opportunity to become a pilot, I was going to go the flight engineer route. But I was lucky when I did the application and I passed all the psychometric evaluations and the psychomotor tests. And at being very young and very fit, my medicals were all within the prerequisites, and I got in. So that actually, kept me going because now another door opened and another opportunity came, and I was finally realizing that dream is on the doorstep now. It was very close.
Yeah. So we get to the Air Force now. You start flying. What does that feel like?
Flying it's very hard to describe. You do something that very few men can do. It doesn't come naturally.
Yeah.
You have to be trained, and in that training process, you've got to be totally committed. The learning curve is exponential at Air Force Base Langebaan. And unfortunately, if you're not cut from that piece of cloth, it'll be very difficult. It's a combination of theoretical knowledge and also motor skill. By taking what's in your head and putting it through your hands and legs at the same time. Because you're not dealing with a two-dimensional world anymore. It's 3 dimensions, if not more. So flying for me, and the procedural part of flying and then the application part of flying, is very different from what commercial pilots do. They move from point A to point B. We do a whole lot of things in between point A and B. And that's the application of military aviation, which makes it more exciting. Obviously, the stakes are higher, the danger is higher. But when you have trained professionals who are training you, you are confident that, those don't exist. They're there, you take cognizance of them, but you're there to do the job.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the application of an aeroplane and putting it to task is what excites more of the military pilot than ordinary pilots.
So through this process, what are you flying? Or which machineries are you pushing
So
through?
I started as a transport pilot, and I was not going to say end, but I maintained the line, so to say. I started at 41 Squadron in 2003, and I became a Charlie 208 Caravan commander very soon after I got there. It was, I think, within a year, if not a little more. Once I became a commander on the Caravan, I started flying the PC-12. And these are all light liaison aircraft with the capability of doing paratrooping like the Caravan. So there was an operational side to it, which included reconnaissance, which included border patrol, those sort of applications. And then also there was the semi-VIP transporters, which was the King Air and the Caravan, which I got to fly just before I was sent to Langebaan to become an instructor in 2005. So that was my early days of flying. And then I was an instructor at the school at Langebaan for almost 6 years.
So, General, what was your experience like there in Langebaan? And maybe if you can highlight some of the successes that you've had there.
So I did 2 tours at Langebaan. The first tour I did as a line instructor, basically giving ab initio instruction to people pilots, wannabe pilots, military pilots. And there it was literally taking someone who cannot walk and making them run.
Sure.
Okay. I said before, the curve of training is exponential. So you have a certain amount of time and a certain amount of resources to get the job done, which generally used to take a year of flying. So the level at which you are giving instruction at Langebaan is very different to what happens out in the commercial sector. The students need to be focused, but so must the instructor, because that student has the potential to kill you. You see, so you have to be hands-on all the time. You have to develop a relationship with your student. He must have trust in you, and you need to have trust in him. So instructor relationships go a very long way. As of today, almost 6 unit commanders was in my logbook. They are now commanders, unit OCs. So I think I did something right, for them all to
Definitely
become.
did, yeah.
And one of them happened to be Lieutenant Colonel Vayeke, who was the lady that commanded the fly past last year with the helicopters. So I'm extremely proud of all my students. And some of the younger ones, because I said I've done 2 tours. My first tour was as an instructor. I left Langaban as a major when I went back to 35 Squadron. But in 2018, I came back as the OC of CFS. And there I had the opportunity, as being the boss, to adapt a new principle, a new ethos of training. And I found that by psychologically evaluating student and instructor. In my first few months at Langaban as the OC, I realized that there was a change that was needed. My staff was very competent, including my 2IC at the time, who's now a General Pat Sele. And together we actually brought the change, where we identified the personality types of student and instructor and made sure that they were matched. And in that way, that interpersonal relationship was encouraged. There was more confidence in instructor and more confidence in student. And not only that, there was cultural differences that you had to also work through. But by facilitating the process of the instructor being more as a mentor and a guide other than the instructor with the whip, gave us the success. And together, myself and General Sele, we managed to have a 100% pass rate in the 3 years that we were there.
Congratulations.
But it was not all my doing. I had a fantastic crew and a staff that bought into the idea and ran with it. And that is the thing about leadership also. Advisory to command is very important. It's not always you.
Yeah, General, you have a strong sense of people management, and my interest then comes in, where does that come from? Where do you get that? I want to lead people to make a change, not to do the job.
Yeah, I think you see with most pilots, when they become a commander of an aircraft, you assume your first command. So you are doing it from a second lieutenant or a lieutenant already. It's not only when you become an OC. And I realized from having some fantastic commanders and some that were not fantastic. So, you learn to adopt what you learned from the great commanders, but you also learned what not to do from the poor ones. So my idea was that I would always want to, if I became a commander one day, and which I continue to do out, and I have a saying that, and everybody who's worked with me knows, I always tell them that my job as a commander is to make you wake up and want to come to work.
Sure.
If I get that done, then I don't have to run behind you to get work done. But also, the subordinates need to know, and as I say, advisory to command comes from the bottom up as well. There have been younger people who are very successful in this Air Force that have also taught me. And without saying that person's name, I would like to say, another commander who has come through the ranks and who's worked under me is also doing exceptionally well. And that person says that I am because you are.
Yeah.
I exist because you exist. And is thankful and grateful for your subordinates being there present to support the command.
Yeah. General, that's very inspirational, and also just teaching the people that are actually watching on just commanding people is not about the harshness that you give to people, but also just to develop them and treat them as people, as human, as you would treat yourself. But now speak to us. When you were at 35 Squadron, up until where you are now, what was the journey like?
35 Squadron was my first command. A maritime squadron that was flying the C-47 TP Dakotas. And I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to fly that old bird, the old lady we called her. But the crew at 35 was special. But I can't say that the crew at CFS wasn't, or Air Force Base Overberg. I was very blessed to have been put in command of very serious aviators, both ground and air crew. 35 Squadron was great because it gave me an opportunity to see exactly what teamwork is all about. Teamwork is definitely dream work. And, we developed a resilience. We developed a way of working around challenges with working with an old airplane, the oldest of its type, the oldest flying in Africa I think. So that first command of mine gave me an opportunity to explore and experience. And as I moved through commands from 35 Squadron, which got the best flying unit for 2 years in a row, and got to CFS, and so did my command ability grow. And then I realized also that you got to deal with people personally. You got to have the interpersonal relationship. Being a leader is one thing. Being able to command is another thing. People must want to follow you, not follow you because you're wearing a rank. So another ethos that came through, and I used what they call the love language. If your love language is words of affirmation, then I must tell you and I must affirm what you want to hear from me.
General, my love language is
Gifts.
touch. No, I don't want gifts. You must be here, you must be present, you must
Yes.
touch. So how do you deal with the different types? Because I'm just starting to imagine that you're going to have to split yourself into different.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So obviously, the love language with touch, we do have a decorum and a rapport in the defense force, so we need to do it in other ways, So close contact, meaning verbal contact, being present. As a commander, first in the morning and last out. Being present to be with your people. When they need you, you need to be present. And that are some of the reasons of the success I've had, in being able to allow people to follow me because they want to follow me, to take the leadership because they want to take the leadership from me. And to make, as I'd like to say, aviation-informed decisions, which encompasses everything in the aviation environment, which means the people, the resources, the skills that you have at hand, and from putting an airplane up in the air to bringing it down. So aviation-informed decisions as a commander means everything.
Sure. General, you have spoken to us a lot and have proven to us that great leadership does not need force. It just needs a touch of love and a touch of human. I like how you quote the person that you were commanding, that I am because you are. And I think it's the things that we can take forward. But thank you for coming to our studio today. We really appreciate the time that you have spent here today. So Mzansi, there is Brigadier General Donovan Chetty. He is an extraordinary leader, and he is an exceptional man. So make sure that you stay tuned with Defense in Focus for the next episode. My name is Giboni Ramasimung, and it has been a great pleasure to be here with you.
Got.